In the 1980s, Ricky Freeway Ross built a powerful drug empire in the United States, earning hundreds of millions of dollars from cocaine trafficking. But was the CIA involved in facilitating his rise? Pasta basica de cocaína, base, or basuco. These were the names for a drug whose consumption became a significant social problem in Ecuador, Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru during the 1970s. It was a sticky, gray paste, an intermediate product in the process of making powdered cocaine. The paste was dried, crushed, and added to cigarettes. Smoking such a concoction delivered intense sensations after just one hit, instantly producing a full-body orgasm and a few minutes of nirvana. Addicts who used basuco preferred it over powdered cocaine, mainly because it worked faster, absorbed through the lungs, and was more potent, containing at least 4 times the concentration of cocaine. It was also much cheaper. However, it had one more crucial property: it was highly addictive. Users, known as pasteleros, could think of nothing else but when they would get their next hit. They focused their entire lives on obtaining more doses, resorting to theft and prostitution when their money ran out. The addiction quickly turned a once organized medical student into a foul-smelling zombie in rags with personality disorders. Pulling someone out of such deep addiction was extremely difficult. In the worst cases, only a partial lobotomy could help. Such procedures were practiced in places like Peru. By the late 1970s, the drug began to gain popularity in the United States. Since coca plants don't grow in the US, a similar substance to base was concocted from powdered cocaine, soda, and water. The entire chemical process is meticulously described online, even on Wikipedia. The resulting drug was white and often had a waxy texture, and it was called crack. Initially, due to the high price of cocaine, only the wealthiest could afford it: celebrities, athletes, and even politicians. However, this quickly changed. Suddenly, tons of white powder began flooding the streets of America, causing cocaine prices to plummet, and crack became one of the most popular drugs. By 1985, the number of Americans addicted to crack was estimated at around 5.8 million. The media alarmingly reported on the crack epidemic and its devastating social consequences. The rise of a completely degenerate army of addicts, children selling their bodies for a few hits, and a surge in murders related to the growth of gangs in the urban ghettos. A certain enterprising African-American dealer, Nicaraguan right-wing rebels, and perhaps even the CIA shared responsibility for this tragic boom. Let's start our story with the first of them, Freeway Rick. Ricky Donnell Ross was born on January 26, 1960, in the small town of Troop in eastern Texas. His parents separated when he was 3 years old. His mother, in search of better job opportunities, moved with him and his older brother to Los Angeles. They settled in the heart of the South Central District, near the intersection of Manchester Avenue and State Highway 110. This is why Ricky was later nicknamed Freeway. The neighborhood was predominantly inhabited by poor African Americans and Latinos. Many teenagers eager for quick money joined the emerging gangs Bloods and Crips. However, young Ricky, raised under the watchful eye of his strict mother, stayed away from them. His passion was tennis. Every day after school, he went to the courts to practice, giving it his all. He impressed with his agility and speed, becoming one of the best young players in LA. He already saw himself on a sports scholarship at one of the major universities. In his senior year, it seemed like he was just one step away from realizing this dream. Long Beach State University took an interest in him and invited him to the team's courts to see what he could do. He proved himself athletically, but then his academic record came under scrutiny. That's when 18-year-old Ricky failed completely. It was revealed that he couldn't read or write. The young man naively thought that since teachers had passed him from grade to grade throughout his life, they would turn a blind eye to his illiteracy at university as well. Of course, his candidacy was immediately rejected. There was no question of him receiving a high school diploma either. In 1979, Ricky's dreams fell apart. Frustrated, he took on various odd jobs. To make money, he started stealing cars. Sometimes he also repaired them, his greatest passion after tennis. Ironically, he also attended a bookbinding course, where he befriended one of the teachers, Mr. Fisher. The old bachelor impressed him with his flashy jewelry and a brand new Cadillac. During one of their conversations, Mr. Fisher revealed that he made extra money by dealing cocaine. Freeway also wanted to earn well. Whether it was legal or not didn't matter to him. So he entered the business involving his childhood friend, Oli Big Lock Newell, who had already done time. Together they stole fancy wheels from a car and sold them for $250. They used all the money to buy their first batches of cocaine from Mr. Fisher. The product sold out quickly. Now they had a tidy sum $600. Both agreed that this was it and began dealing full-time, reinvesting most of their profits at first. We told ourselves that we'd quit once we made $5,000 each, Ross recounted years later. Then we thought that since it was going so fast, we should push it to $20,000. Finally, we decided we'd quit once we had enough to buy a house. The business was going well for them. The cocaine Mr. Fisher provided had a much lower wholesale price. While other dealers sold a gram of cocaine for $150 or $200, Ross could sell his product at a profit for just $125. This attracted customers from all over the city. He constantly increased the supply of the drug while trying to lower its price as much as possible. He made money on the volume of products sold and reinvested everything, wrote the Los Angeles Times about Ross. He operated according to basic economic principles. Others either didn't know this or were too undisciplined to act this way. Soon, Freeway became such a significant player that Mr. Fisher couldn't keep up with the deliveries. So, the teacher introduced him to his Latino wholesaler, Ivan Arguelles. For 8 months, Arguelles supplied him with excellent product at an even lower price. As a result, the enterprising black dealer's clientele grew significantly. When one day Arguelles suddenly disappeared without a trace, he had been shot and was hospitalized for a long time, Ross found a new main supplier in Henry Corrales. However, after some time, Corrales decided to withdraw from the dangerous business and leave the U.S. It was then that Freeway met a desperate Nicaraguan immigrant who had been observing their activities from the sidelines for a while. This acquaintance soon proved to be extremely lucrative for both parties. Contras. The Somoza clan had ruled Nicaragua since the 1930s with the blessing of the United States, treating it as their personal fiefdom, a vast family business. The scale of their control over the country is best illustrated by the fact that they owned half of the best arable land. Meanwhile, the majority of the population lived in unimaginable poverty, treated like semi-slaves. It's no wonder that since the 1960s, anti-government uprisings had become more frequent, and the leftist guerrillas, Sandinistas, gained increasing popular support. The uprisings were brutally suppressed by Somoza's Praetorians, the National Guard, whose entire officer corps had graduated from U.S. military schools. By the late 1970s, the scale of human rights violations and massacres conducted by the Guardsmen led the moralizing Carter administration to withdraw its financial and military support for the regime. As a result, the Somoza dictatorship quickly fell under the blows of the rebels. The Sandinistas took power in the country in July 1979. President Anastasio Somoza Debayle fled to the U.S. and then to Paraguay, where in 1980 he was killed by leftist terrorists. Meanwhile, most of his cronies and National Guard veterans found themselves in exile, mainly in the United States. These circles were seething with a desire for revenge. The Sandinistas had stripped them of their wealth and power overnight. They wanted to regain it. The change in the White House favored their plans. Ronald Reagan, who took office as president in January 1981, had no intention of tolerating a revolutionary government in Nicaragua, viewing it, according to Cold War logic, as another communist outpost in the U.S.'s traditional sphere of influence. Therefore, the CIA discreetly began supporting Somoza's veterans, aiming to create an anti-Sandinista guerrilla force. Thus, in August 1981, the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, Fuerza Democrática Nicaragüense (FDN), was formed in neighboring Honduras, led by General Enrique Bermudez. It was the first of the reactionary groups later known under the banner of Contras, short for counter-revolutionaries. The Americans allocated only $19 million for the insurgency's startup, buying weapons, equipment, uniforms, etc. It was a laughable sum compared to the FDN's needs. As a result, the Nicaraguans had to raise funds on their own. A patriot willing to generously support the cause was found. His name was Norwin Men.